Hello everyone, my name is Angelica and I'm here to talk to you about creating a positive learning environment based upon my personal pedagogical stance. When I first began university study, my class was asked, "What is a pedagogy?" A few sideways glances were exchanged among my peers, others kept their heads down. I too was unsure of the meaning of the word or what you would do with one. Over 4 long years of education and experience, I now understand that a person's pedagogy is derived from their experiences and motivations for teaching. As with any other, my pedagogy is ever-changing and constantly evolving, moving from the idea of educating being about my teaching to teaching being about the learning of my students, how their interests, development and readiness influences how I teach. At the core of my pedagogical stance is a belief and the value in the power of education. Now let me assure you, there are many ways to teach, there are many ways to learn, and there are many ways to bring about learning. These are the 5 principles that I feel are paramount for creating a positive learning environment. The first principle that I'll talk about today surrounds authenticity and building a strong classroom culture based on positive relationships. I believe that authentic teaching is the foundation for building a strong mutual respect between student and teacher. As Palmer has identified, good teaching comes from the identity of the teacher. Neville attributes this fact to individuation, the tendency to become ourselves rather than to copy someone else. It is my strong opinion that as a pre-service teacher, I must demonstrate individuation in the form of integrity and authenticity rather than imitation. My practice needs to be true to who I am and how I teach best, not replications of good teachers who I've observed previously. Although I can learn from their experience, I need to individualise their strategies and apply them in my own way that works for me. It is only when you know who you are as a teacher that Palmer believes you can know your students and begin to build a strong, mutually respectful relationship with them. A good place to start would be by addressing the students by their preferred name. This is as simple as asking them what they would like to be called when you read out the roll for the first time. As a PE teacher, it's essential to know the students' names when giving instruction and feedback. Another stepping stone to a positive relationship is by discussing student interests with them inside and outside of class time where appropriate. By expressing an interest in what they like doing is showing them that you care. It also provides good material for healthy banter like whose footy team won on the weekend. A PE teacher that I frequently observe is renowned for quickly establishing a strong rapport with students through witty retorts to student comments that redirect the attention and learning back on task. By developing this mutually respectful relationship, we are one step closer to understanding our students and demonstrating a holistic approach. The second principle that I believe is paramount to creating a positive learning environment is all about understanding how students learn and the relevant theories behind them. In order to know how our students learn, we need a base knowledge of the many learning theories out there and how they present themselves in our students. In order to apply our teaching to cater for the many learning styles of our students, I believe it would be a great idea to implement the use of the Principles of Learning and Teaching Student Learning Survey. The information collected from this survey allows teachers to plan lessons in accordance with learner preference, satisfying the learning styles that each might display. Gardner identifies the learning styles and represents them as intelligences in his multiple intelligences theory. The verbal, linguistic and logical mathematic intelligences are the most frequently used in traditional school curricula. A more holistic and balanced curriculum that incorporates the arts, self-awareness, communication and physical education may be useful in order to leverage the intelligences that some other students might have. This leads me to talk about catering for student diversity through differentiation. There are many theories of differentiation. A prominent theory in contemporary education is that of Carol Tomlinson, who proposes that teaching can be differentiated in 3 different ways that I've interpreted as content, process, and product. There are many ways of differentiating content. Readiness differentiation is to ensure that the content is at an appropriately challenging level of complexity, independence, and pacing. So that would be to ensure that a student with the fundamental modal skills of a Year 7 student is not expected to compete in PE or sport classes that require mastery of specific motor skills and apply them to competition. Interest differentiation is ensuring the content involves or extends upon current student interests. So asking a Year 8 student with an interest in mathematics to extend their understanding of maths into the PE classroom by allowing them to take the role of a statistician in a CPEP, which is Sport Education in Physical Education program, would satisfy this mode of differentiated teaching. The way that I will seek the appropriate means to differentiate my teaching for the learning needs of my students will be applying various teaching strategies that address the responses in the Pulse student learning surveys mentioned previously. From this data, I'll be able to modify my instruction methods according to learning preferences. In a practical example, within my PE lesson, my technique instruction will be delivered verbally, accompanied by a demonstration of the skill, so the students can visualise the verbal cues. Then I'll ask the students to perform the technique or skill while I incorporate the verbal cues for each action. Additionally, when regarding differentiation, consideration is owed to disability. Should a student be unable to perform as the other students within my PE class, modified equipment, playing area or game rules might have to be integrated in order to make the learning sequence inclusive. This could follow the change it model. For example, if a student of mine, Billy, has a profound hearing impairment, I could modify my My fourth principle is all about ensuring the classroom is a supportive and safe environment that allows all students to learn to the best of their ability through management of challenging student behaviour. The group-oriented approach works with students and teacher to establish rules and guidelines for behaviour with logical consequences rather than random punishments. By involving the students in the rule-making process, the students are forced to make the right choices and behave in a way that they have agreed upon and believe in, making students responsible for their own pro-social behaviour as well as that of their peers. The interactionalist model bases principles on individual psychology, suggesting that belonging is the basic motivation for human behaviour. These motivations for belonging are categorised by 4 goals: attention, power, revenge, and withdrawal. This approach moves away from teacher-centred to a democratic classroom where the teacher aims to modify these motivations rather than behaviour. To maintain safety, this approach could be used to manage behaviour, establish relationships, and foster a sense of belonging so that there is no need for students to seek either attention, power, revenge, or withdrawal. I believe that all learning is a mutual exchange between teacher and student. By establishing these simple bonds, we are one step closer to a holistic approach to teaching. My final principle encompasses and achieves a holistic positive learning environment by providing meaningful constructive feedback and reflecting on and evaluating teaching practice. Providing both positive and constructive feedback to students is vital. It informs students of their current level of attainment and offers guidance and recommendations for future learning. Simply delivering the feedback isn't enough. It needs to be well-timed, ongoing, and consistent. For example, in a PE class, when a student is performing a fundamental motor skill, catching and throwing, giving them feedback on their technique at the conclusion of the class or even weeks later is not considered beneficial to their learning. Arguably, this feedback is not considered meaningful. It would be useful to provide the feedback immediately after the skill has been performed and monitored during the execution. This way students can understand the recommendations and are also given the opportunity to use the feedback to improve their learning. No matter how well you teach, there is always room for improvement. I believe that effective teaching arguably comes from those who endeavour to be the best teacher that they can be. Being a reflective teacher is something that I strive to become and is therefore an element of teaching that I find very valuable. By looking at how and why you teach the way that you do and the outcomes of doing it that way, it can help to identify strengths that can be utilised again and weaknesses that need improving. Killen believes that through reflection, teachers can improve their teaching and their students' resulting learning. I believe that reflection is a fundamental process that aids teachers to move through the learning continuum that takes them from novice to expert. Corthagen and Wubbles provide evidence that reflective teachers have better interpersonal relationships with students than otherwise. This is essential to creating a positive learning environment as mentioned in Principles 1 and 2. Reflective practice encourages teachers to continuously improve their teaching to be the best that it can be, so they can become mindful of their attitudes and beliefs embedded in their practices. I believe that it's important to recognise that your actions as a teacher directly affect the learning of the learners. Being critically reflective on practice influences the positive changes that can happen in the classroom. Thompson and Thompson also recognise that pre-service teachers may lack the knowledge of teaching strategies that might help them to identify alternatives to their current teaching practice. It's for this reason that I'll constantly seek improvement through meaningful, constructive feedback from my mentors and lecturers. Teachers will always have room for improvement in their teaching practice, and it's those who aspire to close the gap between where they are now and where they need to be as a teacher that I believe demonstrate characteristics of an effective teacher who nurtures student well-being and positive learning environments.